first 3 episodes of the final season of The Bad Batch are out. Here is my take on those episodes. Episode 1 is titled Confined. We begin on Mount Tentis, where an Imperial shuttle crashed outside the security perimeter. The crew survive and asks for help. The base receives the distress call, but Dr. Hemlock decides not to send a rescue party, saying that they are as good as dead already. On the comms, we hear blaster shots, screams, and creatures growling. It might have been a year for us, but Dr. Hemlock is still as mean and cruel as he ever was. The next morning, we see Omega looking through the window of her cell, still hoping for a rescue. She is then picked up by Dr. Emery Carr to assist her in her work. They both go to a lab where tests are being performed on clones. Blood samples are taken, and Omega is no exception. She tries to connect with Emery, saying it is nice to have a sister. Emery seems a bit troubled hearing that. She sends Omega to Nalasse's lab to bring her the blood samples. The Kaminoan scientist discards Omega blood tests and explains Omega that the Empire seeks the reproduction of a genetic M count and that she is trying to protect her. The two of them get the visit of Dr. Hemlock, who wishes to speak privately to Nalasse. As they walk in the compound, they both enter a mysterious, heavily guarded room. Meanwhile, Omega performs her daily chores such as feeding Lurka hounds. She seems to have a special bond with one of them named Badger. Then, Omega visits Crosshair, and boy oh boy is he broken. His right hand is shaking, which is terrible for a sharpshooter, and he doesn't seem to be the shadow of himself. She tells him that she wishes she had come sooner, to which he replies that she shouldn't be there at all. She wants to plan an escape. He replies that he has already tried and that it is impossible. He says she trusts too easily. She says he doesn't trust enough. I love that back and forth exchange between Omega's optimism and Crosshair's negativity. She refuses to accept her fate, while the other has given up all hope of a better life. At night, in her cell, she adds a bar on the wall, marking another day of captivity. If we count the bars, we see that she has been a prisoner for 21 days. She has also made herself a tukadal out of straw she has been secretly collecting. We make a jump in time and, judging by the mark on the wall, at least 5 months have passed. Omega's hair is longer, and she now has a ponytail. She goes through the same routine day after day, passing by Crosshair, taking a blood sample, bringing it to Nalasse, who discards it, before she moves on to feeding the Lurka hounds. Basically, it's Groundhog Day for Omega. One day, she realizes Badger is injured. She then secretly cleans its wound in the hopes of saving its life. Their bond is slowly getting stronger. She keeps visiting Crosshair, who is still beaten down. He tells her she needs to focus on escaping, even if it means she must leave him behind. Crosshair thinks that his previous actions justify the fact that he is being imprisoned. To that, Omega replies that none of them deserve to be there. Finally, Crosshair has realized that he was on the wrong side of things. This is a huge step forward for the clone who was unconditionally loyal to the Empire a short time ago. When Omega learns that Badger is set to be terminated because he has become too domesticated, she does everything she can to help it escape. Security is alerted, and Dr. Hemlock tells her that she has only delayed his death because it won't be able to survive in the jungle. He then goes on to threaten Omega that if she doesn't change her behavior, Crosshair might suffer the consequences. That night, Emery comes to her cell, but Omega is too angry to hear her out. Emery respects Omega's demand to be left alone, only after giving her back her Tuca doll that had been confiscated in the morning. Outside, we hear Batcher howling in the wild. On to Episode 2, Paths Unknown. We begin on Deveron, where Roland Durand, who we met in Episode 13 of Season 1, and his mother, Lady Aissa Durand, are accusing the captain of the guard of treason. He is ultimately found guilty. Lady Durand removes the energy floor beneath him, and he falls to his death. Keep in mind that the Durands are a powerful crime family, and that they are not people who you mess around with. The following people having an audience with Lady Durand are Hunter and Ricker. They both bring a Pike prisoner with them. It is the Pike that cut Roland's horn in the first season. They even give Durand's horn back, which I thought was a nice touch. Both trade the Pike for intel that might help them discover where Omega is being held prisoner. Lady Durand underlines the fact that they must be very desperate if they are willing to go against the Pike. Well, they are. The Pikes are an even more powerful criminal organization, so the clones are kind of applying a "the enemy of my enemy is my friend" strategy here. The two of them follow the intel and travel to a remote jungle planet. They discover an abandoned Hemlock laboratory and meet two clone cadets. As they walk in the jungle, the cadets explain that the Empire was running experiments and that they need to stay away from the vines. As usual, Ricker is not careful, and well, he touches one. The four of them are attacked, but escape relatively easily. The cadets explain that it was supposed to be an experimental weapon, but they lost control of it. They take Hunter and Ricker to a cave where they live. There, we meet Mox, an older cadet. We also learn that the two younger clone names are Stack and Deke. The latter volunteers to accompany Hunter and Ricker in the lab rooms to see if they can discover Omega's location. Once inside, they begin to get attacked by the slither vines. Back at camp, Mox and Stack argue if they should steal the Marauder. They decide to go check out the shuttle. In the lab, the group plug Gonki on a control panel to retrieve data. While the data is being transferred, they get attacked by a huge creature to which the slither vines are attached. They call Mox and Stack for help, but no one answers. Moments later, the Bad Batch shuttle arrives with the two cadets on board. Hunter, Ricker, and Deke barely escape through a hole in the lab ceiling. After the dust settles, Hunter checks out the data and discovers that Hemlock's operation was transferred to another location. They know in which sector, but they don't have the exact location. They tell the three cadets that they will take them to a safe place. By the description of it, we understand they are referring to Pabu. The cadets are the perfect example that the Empire see the clones as obsolete and expendable. They don't care what happens to them, and they clearly won't spend time and resources to search for three missing cadets. The third and last episode of this week's release is called Shadows of Tentis. A new day begins on Mount Tentis. As usual, Emery picks up Omega at her cell and they both go to the lab. They get a visit from Hemlock, who requires Nala Sage's presence for the arrival of a special guest. Since she won't be able to destroy Omega's blood sample, Nala Sage tells Omega that she needs to escape. In the hangar, a space shuttle arrives with none other than the Emperor. He tells Hemlock that he is not here to check his progress on cloning, but that he is currently more interested with Project Necromancer. This is the second time this project is mentioned. The first time was during a meeting of the Shadow Council in the third season of The Mandalorian, more precisely in Chapter 23, titled The Spies. If the project is still a work in progress more than 2 decades after the events of the Bad Batch, I guess it is safe to say that something important will happen to delay the Empire's plans. Meanwhile, Omega uses Nala Se's datapad to make her way in the facility. She goes to Crosshair's cell and tells him that now is the time to escape. They neutralize the 2 guards and head for the hangar to try and steal a shuttle. On their way, they find out that the Emperor had arrived, which means that the increased security will prevent them from acquiring a shuttle. They need a plan B. During that time, Hemlock shows Palpatine a room with what seems to be cloning chambers. We don't see who or what is inside, but my guess is that it has something to do with the Emperor cloning himself or Asajj Ventress. I guess that we will just have to wait and see. Palpatine seems pleased and tells Hemlock that he will have all the resources he needs to pursue his work. Omega takes Crosshair to the kennel and tells him they will escape through a chute. However, they are intercepted by Emery, who tries to convince Omega to return to her room. They try to convince her to escape with them, but she remains loyal to the Empire. Crosshair stuns her with his blaster. As he leaves, Palpatine tells Hemlock that it is imperative that this facility remains hidden and secure. Eager for more power, Hemlock suggests that he could achieve more things should he be appointed scientific minister. To that, Palpatine answers, all in due time. Hemlock is immediately informed of Omega and Crosshair's escape. They find Emery still shaken up, and they release the Lurkars to catch them. Emery states that the hounds will probably kill them, but this doesn't seem to bother Hemlock. He then turns his attention to Nala Se, and he visibly suspects the Kaminoan to have helped her protege escape. As they run toward the shuttle that crashed in the first episode, Omega and Crosshair can hear the Lurkars catching up on them. But another menace shows up. A Dryax rises on his back limbs like a bear, but before it attacks them, it gets attacked by the hounds. The Imperial troops arrive in a shuttle and get dropped on the ground. They exchange fire shots with our fellow clones, who decide to go with Plan 72. Basically, this plan uses the environment as cover to confuse the troop on their location and have them shoot in all directions. When Omega seems to get caught, she gets saved by Batcher. Omega, Crosshair, and Batcher manage to escape using one of the Imperial shuttles. Back on Tentis, Emery gets the results of Omega's blood sample test. She rushes to Hemlock and tells him that they cannot kill the 2 escapees because Omega's sample supported a positive M-count transfer. Hemlock tells his forces to give up the pursuit, allowing Omega and Crosshair to jump into hyperspace and escape. As I told you during my spoiler-free review, I think Disney made the right call by releasing those 3 episodes on the same day. Together, they form the first arc of the season, and I think viewers would have found the pace to be too slow had the episodes been released on a weekly basis. As a whole, they form the best way to start the season and set the table for what is yet to come. If you like this review, please consider subscribing to the channel or give us a super thanks. You can also follow us on social media at SW Artefacts. I'll see you next week for another review, and until then, may the force be with you always.